Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and today, as I continue my COVID-19 series, I have a guest for you, and he is in St. Lucia, Dr. Marcus Day. Dr. Day, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy Monday to share this time with me and my viewers. Welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Thank you for inviting me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm grateful to hear what's happening in St. Lucia. I've covered many of the islands, and then I thought, where is St. Lucia? Why aren't they represented in this series? And fortunately, someone introduced us, and we are going to hear from you. What do you do in St. Lucia, Marcus?
Well, currently I'm retired, but I'm the former director of the Caribbean Drug and Alcohol Research Institute, where we looked at issues around drug use, HIV, the overlap, especially among people who use crack cocaine. That was our primary population that we investigated. So that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, but I'm now retired and enjoying a life on a pension.
Oh, good. I'm sure there's, how long have you been retired?
Just when I turned 65.
Okay.
I'm 66, so a year and a half now.
Oh, so you got to enjoy some retirement before COVID showed up.
I'm actually a very quiet and reclusive kind of individual anyway. I'm one of those typical academics who would just prefer to read and be in books than anything else. So for me, it's not so much of an issue. I have my gardens, I have my yard, I have a big space. I'm very privileged in that respect, that I'm not cooped up in a small apartment or something. So, and I live on a tropical island where it's warm and beautiful, and the impact hasn't been as great as we anticipated, at least not so far. Who knows, we're really right in the beginning of this, I believe. So, but so far we've been pretty well managed, I think, in terms of the government. We closed the airports very quickly. We had a few cases. Our first case actually was a British Airways captain, a pilot captain. And so we shut down relatively quickly, and I think we controlled a lot of the influx of disease, and we've also been quarantining people very good in government facilities. The government has been very good in terms of ensuring that people are treated with dignity and put into, we have an excess capacity of hotel rooms, right? So the government took over a couple of hotels and put people there. It kept the people in the hotels working also, which was a good thing. And so basically, people who were returning nationals, if you did not have the capacity to self-isolate in a home that was large enough for you to be alone, we put you in a hotel, basically. So
okay.
We've had 18 cases, no deaths reported so far. So in that respect, we've been very lucky.
I'm very impressed with the Caribbean islands. They've really managed to keep their death tolls, most of them, to zero, keep the numbers down, and heal the contaminated cases. Very impressive.
You know, it's fascinating, because one of the things that we have, even though we have a government healthcare system, it's in our primary healthcare is fabulous. We have 35 primary healthcare centers for a population of 170,000. So we basically have a health center for every 3,000 people. They're spread out all over the island. We have virtually 100% immunization. We have a few people who opt out, and now we're seeing where some of the science is showing us that that MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccines are having a protective influence. So we have virtually 100%.
There has been a linkage to that?
Yes, ma'am. I'll send you the link when we get off the thing here. Yes, there was an article published yesterday, the day before, that just showed the overlap in that when they do a correlation. So we don't know if it's because of, but there's a correlation between people who have had MMR vaccines and reduced mortality and morbidity in COVID-19 patients. So people aren't getting as bad a reaction, people who have been vaccinated with the MMR. So, and we have a very good vaccination program here in the country. And I think going back to that, I think that the fact that in Jamaica, the government tried to get the people who were coming back on cruise ships, Jamaicans, to quarantine and to pay for their own quarantine, which was not much, 20 US a day, but in Jamaican money, that's almost 2,200 or something, right? So, whereas in St. Lucia, the government bared the burden of all the costs, the isolation, the quarantines, the testing. We, unfortunately, most of our islands are challenged in that we're not able to roll out the level of testing that we would like to. But we have a very good contact tracing program that has been developed from our TB program and then enhanced in our HIV program. So in that respect, we've been able to contact trace, isolate people. So hopefully we can maintain this. This is the challenge, because now we're talking about opening up the airports again and allowing tourists to come back. And that's going to be our challenge in terms of an influx of people possibly who have an infection.
But your economy depends on tourism, right?
Yes.
Okay. My next question is, I see that you've pointed out a correlation between the MMR vaccine. I have heard, I was wondering, based on my own observation, if the BCG shot is also helping people who have the BCG.
One of our local physicians commented on a Facebook post actually that, and she mentioned the BCG vaccine also and our high level of. So I think, unfortunately, we're right in the beginning of this thing. I mean, they only found out sometime in the last week of December. So as we investigate further, as many of the people that I've worked with over the last 20 years in HIV are now transiting into looking at solutions for COVID and vaccines for COVID, that hopefully within the next year or two, we're going to find out a lot more about it and be able to prepare ourselves. I think,
has the population in St. Lucia, have you all been given the BCG shot as well?
Yeah, we almost have,
Okay.
except for some people. We have a Rastafarian community that's relatively natural living, and so they kind of resist vaccinations. And given their lifestyle and their level of health based on natural food, natural living, they're really in good shape, actually. So
Wow.
we rarely see Rastafarians present at the hospital for anything other than maybe an injury. But for our non-communicable disease population, 68% of our deaths in St. Lucia are attributed to non-communicable diseases. We have very high prevalence of diabetes, hypertension, and COPD, right, emphysema. So those people are high-risk population when it comes to COVID, and the ones that we're particularly worrying about in terms of a recurrence in virus. So that's and I think that's I was actually interested. I heard the Health and Human Services Secretary in America talk about the reason why the disease has impacted the Americans so hard, and it was for that same reason. And he kind of freaked out the reporter who when he said it. I actually was amazed, because there's two things I think about the American health system that's contributed to this. One is private health care. We have national health care. I mean, we have private doctors, but we have a national hospital. Nobody gets turned away. You'll never get turned away at the hospital, even if you don't have any money. And that system of health centers. I mean, the first time Fauci went to the Congress and he talked, and they asked him about South Korea, he said, our system isn't designed the same way. It's a pay system. We don't even know how to test for free. And I think that this was one of the indictments to that private healthcare system is the fact that you have people who have COVID or going to the hospital and coming out with huge medical bills that they possibly cannot even pay. Whereas for us, anybody who we have hospitalized here in our poor little country with very limited resources will not get a bill for their COVID treatment. I mean, so I think that to me has been a wake-up call in terms of how we're supposed to structure our healthcare system, because the Caribbean was buying into this American thing. We were moving our healthcare system more to a privatized health authority, cost center, generate revenue, treat tourists, like have a health tourism product, right? I mean, one of the things that amazes me is that the financial difficulties of American hospitals based on the fact that they can't do elective surgeries now, so therefore they don't have any income. I watch this, and to me, I'm amazed at that, actually, because given the fact that we need healthcare so bad, and yet we're laying off healthcare workers because of the income status of the hospital that they work for. It's a strange system you have.
We do, I must say. Well, I was raised in a socialized medicine system because I was raised in British Guyana. So I always wonder why it isn't that way here. And there were times when there were talk about it and people resisted it, which I found very strange. But different countries, different cultures, as you know.
So you're Belizean then?
Yes.
That's nice. Okay. So
are you a native of St. Lucia? Because you don't look like your typical St. Lucian.
Well, I can say that about you too. You don't look like your typical Belizean. Are you a Mayan? Are you native?
Belize? I don't live in Belize.
Well, but one thing about, anywhere in the Caribbean, right? So everybody looks like, you picture the Caribbean as basically Afro-Caribbean people, right? But the reality of our Caribbean melting pot is that, we're everybody. We're Indians, we're mestizos, we're Native Americans. I mean, I have a number of people here from Guyana who come from Native American tribes in Guyana. So the melting pot of genes here. And I think that's one of the things that actually makes us a stronger people, is that genetic diversity that we have here in the Caribbean. I mean, I came here from the Virgin Islands 32 years ago and married a St. Lucian woman, made 3 children here who are still here now. And, and they're contributing, I have a granddaughter now. So, the gene pool and diversity continues.
I bet. So that's why, because, typically I know what the majority of St. Lucians look like, and you just don't fit that mold. It comes to mind. That's why I thought I would ask. And I also am aware that a lot of people immigrate to the Caribbean islands or migrate from different countries, and they set up their lives there and they become citizens, just like I've moved to the United States and have been living here longer than I lived in Guyana. So that's why I asked you that question.
Wait a minute. So Guyana, not Belize, Guyana.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was.
Oh yeah, okay. I because they used to call Belize British Honduras or something.
Yeah, and in fact, the Guyanese people will kill me for referring to Guyana still as British Guyana, because they have been they were independent in our republic.
So we're a rich country now.
Yeah,
a big oil rich country. They're hoping that Guyanese people go home. Actually, that they're trying to lure people back.
Yes, because they just found the oil there, but they found the oil and then the oil lost its value. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
That's a sad story.
Everything is changing in today's world, isn't it? COVID-19 is running the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Everything is different.
Yeah. Are we allowed to talk? Are we allowed to talk about why you wear a patch over your eye?
Yeah. I was a child. I fell down, blinded myself, and for a number of years, the eye was basically, you couldn't tell the difference. But when I reached about 30, it started to atrophy, and so I decided that why not? I mean, it was just, I didn't get a glass one. It wouldn't, I couldn't get an eye that worked, so why bother with anything else? And throughout my career, I have had the opportunity, because of the patch, to always be remembered. So anytime I went to a big meeting and there was a prime minister or a minister of health or somebody who had been at a previous meeting, and many times I represented St. Lucia diplomatically at Commissioner of Narcotics Drugs in Vienna. So it always worked out well because people remembered who I was.
Yeah, you have a visible, indelible mark. That's really cool. I just had to ask you because I'm sure many people
Yeah, no
looking at
problem.
this interview wonder. I wasn't trying to be impertinent.
No, not at all. Don't worry. Hey, see, that's where you've become an American, because a St. Lucian or a Caribbean person would never bother. They would just ask the question, what happened to your eye man?
I know, it's true.
No filter at all. No filter. Hey, man, you ain't one. How many years? So from being one-eyed Jack, right, to then going to SpongeBob, you could tell how the culture changed, because I started off 30 years ago, it would be one-eyed Jack, always one-eyed Jack, like a card, right? But then as SpongeBob became more popular, people would go, ah.
Fantastic. At least
The pirate, right?
Well, I'm grateful you can still see, because I interviewed someone a few months ago who, weeks ago, not months, who is completely blind, was born with his sight, wow, and then developed a brain tumor that resulted in him being completely blind. And great attitude. So I'm grateful that you still have one eye that serves.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a whole I could do.
It clearly has
3 hours on what it's like to have one eye and how much better it's been than two. But you know,
right.
another whole story.
And it has not stopped you. You've gone on to be successful, and sounds like you've done what you were born to do. So we do what we have to do, and we have to do it.
I literally see more than a two-eyed person because I have no depth perception. So for me to see depth, I have to judge everything through relationships, which means my eye takes in everything at one time just to see where I am in the picture. And so for me, in terms of my work, which a lot of it was ethnography on the road, looking at what's going on, sex work, drug use, these kind of things, right? It's been very, very helpful actually, because I'm much more perceptive of my surroundings than people who have stereoscopic vision and they just know where they are. To me, everything looks like TV. I mean, the screen here looks the same as what I see basically. So in the daytime, it's okay. At night, it's kind of hard.
Okay. Now tell me what you enjoy the most about that job. Could you share a little bit about what you did in that role?
Sure. So basically, when you ask me what you should call me, right? What my title would be, and I put down Baha'i pioneer. So I'm a Baha'i. I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and the Baha'i faith basically believes in the oneness of of the planet, right? We really, what people decry as the New World Order, we celebrate. We want to see the unity of the planet. We think the problems of the planet are beyond the capacity of any one nation state to solve, and that we need a greater capacity on a planetary level, right? And on top of everything else, I'm a big Star Trek fan. I mean, I think the world should be like Star Trek. I really do, where we look at ourselves as human beings and forget about all the other stuff, right? And so that and my ex-wife, who is deceased, was a Baha'i also, and it was one of the reasons I came here, because when we met, we decided that she was from here and it would be better for us to live here basically. And so that's it. So we started 31 years ago, we started a preschool, which is still in operation, though right now it's closed because of COVID and we don't know whether we're going to be able to maintain the bills and the mortgages and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of freaky for us considering, 30 years of work. She passed away in 2018, and my youngest daughter, who's now 25, NCDs, right? Overweight, heart problem. My youngest daughter is took over the school. My oldest daughter is a physician, trained in Cuba, and just back a couple of years now working. And my son is working in agriculture and natural plants and bush medicine basically. And so, one of the things that the two younger ones have been working on is just making sure, checking on people, old people, people in the LGBT community, a lot of people in the LGBT community work in the tourism industry. And so a lot of people are displaced there. So, we're in the middle of a drought, so there's a water shortage. So, we had people passing by just to fill up water from
You
our
have a water shortage in St. Lucia?
Yeah, it's right now.
I'm sorry. I had to interject with that. It sounds so foreign.
So half of the water that we treat gets lost in leaks in the pipes. So we have, and then on top of it, because it hasn't rained, most of our water comes from rivers. So when the river levels go down, and we have one dam that after a really bad storm about 15 years ago, silted up almost to the top. I mean, what used to be a 20-foot deep pool of water is like 4 feet now. So yeah, we have, and it's one of our, it's one of the major issues of many small island developing states.
What is the population there?
170,000
Okay.
on 240 square miles of land, basically. Something 8 miles wide, 35 miles long, basically.
Okay.
And mountainous, volcanic, rainforest in the middle. We have the whole center of the island is basically restricted because it's a water catchment. So it's part of our watershed properties, so we have to protect that the best we can. But there's always encroachment from agriculture because there's, people are hungry, people are farming. There's a lot of subsistence agriculture here. There's a huge gap between the rich and the poor. There's a population of wealthy people, a lot of expatriates, foreigners, and part of the old plantation class. We still have people here who got land from the French king 300 years ago and are still on that land.
Wow.
And the black people who were the descendants of the slaves, the enslaved populations, still work there, still live there. So I mean, it's really.
Are you serious?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised to hear that.
I mean, we don't, land reform is a major issue in the Caribbean, throughout the islands. A lot of the land belonged to big planters. I mean, well, our prime minister is, of a descendant of the French white planter class. That's, we have a tendency to, have, I mean, it's the economic powers that run the country. I give you an example. We have an electricity act, right? The government act that allows for electricity, allows for the electricity company, which is a private company owned by stockholders, of which the government owns some stock, to have a guaranteed 19% profit, guaranteed in the act, right? So whatever the final number is at the end, they add 19% to your bill, and that's their money. The last government that was in power tried to change that act to allow for the generation of alternatives, renewables. Because right now you can't generate your own electricity. They'll disconnect you from the grid if you do, right? So, and they could not, and they had the majority in the parliament. So you could pass a bill. Once you have everybody there, then everybody says yay and you're done. They could not pass the bill. Why could they not pass the bill? Because they didn't really run the country. Who runs the country? The people who invest in the money people. And I think that that's pretty much, so we have this huge gap between these money people and everybody else. I mean, we have 29% of the population that falls below the poverty line in St. Lucia. And then when you go up, it's, literally that, I mean, I used to be, I was in a Rotary Club here for 25 years. And the Rotary Club does very good work. And the Rotarians are people who voluntarily give up their money for charity work. And so I'll never say anything bad about them. But we used to spend for lunch what people would make for a week in salary, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So when you see that kind of disparity, when I know as from my position, I could go into a hotel and also my complexion and not get hassled. whereas other people would get it. Many of our people never have the experience to even the opportunity to even experience what it's like in one of these hotels unless they work it, that kind of thing. So I mean,
that is really surprising because we're in the 20th century now.
Right now Sandals is in a position where they're going to reopen in a couple of weeks, and what they're trying to do is force their staff to live on property so that they don't infect people, either themselves or other people, and this kind of stuff. And from what I read today, it was one of these things, well, because there's no union in the Sandals Hotel. So, one of the things I read today was that if you don't accept the fact that you stay on property, then you just don't have a job anymore.
Well, how is the government providing for those people now during this crisis?
The National Insurance Scheme, which is our pension scheme, primarily pensions and sickness, right? So if you're in the national insurance, if you have a job, you pay NIS, and you get, they help you if you're sick, and they also give you money. That's where my pension comes from, right? From contributing, like Social Security in America.
Ah, yes.
And so what we've done here now, government has topped up the NIS money and have allowed everybody who pays NIS to make the claim for, I believe, $500 a month to carry them over until work starts again. And there's a mechanism for people who were not NIS contributors to have the opportunity to sign up for NIS and then to get money from them also, while they also capture you, so you hopefully become a contributor later on. There's so many people, some people would ask a question in a research thing. They'd say, have you ever had a job? But I wouldn't ask it like that. I would say, have you ever had a job where NIS was taken out of your money? Because that's a real job. Many people have a bounce and draw kind of thing, but very few people are in that kind of formalized employment stream. So that's one of the things they're trying to do. But it's, I know it's funny because I guess the middle class is going to be the more people who have been accustomed to living a kind of way are going to probably have the biggest adjustment to make. The rich people aren't going to have any adjustment. They're just rich, and they're going to be rich. They don't, and the worst comes, and maybe some of the crumbs that fall off their table won't trickle down to the poor people. But the poor people, the people in my neighborhood, the people that we work with and work help and stuff, a lot of them are not accustomed to eating store-bought food, not accustomed to eating food from cans and boxes and things like that. They're accustomed to eating stuff that grows in the ground. I was mentioning today that I know 5 different sets of people who are living without electricity or water. I mean, people who come by me and take water in buckets and bottles to take home and use pit latrines for their, we still have about 40% of the population here that still uses a pit latrine.
What part of the island are you in? Are you in the main city? Are you in the capital?
Yes, I'm right outside the capital.
And what's it called?
Within the city limits, Castries.
Castries?
Castries. And
that's the name of your main city.
Yes, and the preschool that we run, the people who live behind the preschool use a pit latrine. They don't have running water.
I thought you were living in a rural part of the island when you started to make, when you were explaining that to me with latrines.
Well, if it was 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd hear the chickens. The whole island is kind of rural, even though this is the city, the urban part of it. It's a small.
It's one of the islands I've never visited. I've been to many islands, but I've never gone to St. Lucia. I'm intrigued. I want to come to visit now because it sounds like it's a little bit, and I don't mean this offensively, like it's a little stuck in time.
If you really want stuck in time, you'd probably want to go to Dominica. Dominica would even.
I lived in Dominica.
Okay, well, Dominica is more rural.
Are you referring to Dominica or Republic of Dominica?
No, Dominica, the little island.
Between Martinique and Guadeloupe?
Yes, exactly.
I live there.
Okay, yeah. So we're a little more developed than that.
Okay.
Yeah, but not much. We have a better airport.
Have you been hit as many times by the hurricanes as they have?
No, thank God.
Okay, yeah, I think that's one of the things that's worked against that country is every time they rebuild, another hurricane comes and flattens the island.
Even now, watching the radar from Martinique, the weather radar, when you see 2 or 3 little drops of rain coming over St. Lucia, and all the rain is going across Dominica. I mean, where we're suffering from a drought, they still have plenty of water. I mean, that's a good thing. But like you say, that same track where the weather goes across is where the storms go across. So.
I did not realize that St. Lucia was so sort of like stuck in time. I thought it was more like Barbados and Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, but I guess I was way off.
Well, I mean, for the Eastern Caribbean countries, countries of the OECS, we're the most developed one. But compared to Jamaica or Trinidad, I mean, we're the country bumpkins. I mean,
well, Trinidad has oil as an export in addition to their tourism. So it gives them that more of an economic edge to grow. But is tourism your only form of bringing in money to your island? Is this your only economic resource?
It's the huge argument, right? It has been ever since I lived here, actually. In fact, agriculture was our prime moneymaker, our prime foreign exchange earner. But it's always been a monocrop. So it was coconuts, it was lime peel, it was sugarcane. Most recently, it was bananas. And so it's always been that one crop that we focused on to the exclusion of others. So there's a lot of market gardens, and there's a large amount of local food that's produced. And then there's tourism. And tourism I've been here 32 years. In the last 32 years, tourism has surpassed agriculture. As a result, there's been a huge migration from rural communities into the north, where the majority of tourism hotels are. There's been a lot of dislocation in those communities. A lot of latchkey kids that didn't exist before. The villages that people came out of, where there was extended families and clans almost, right, that would watch everybody. That disappeared when people moved up to the north. We had a lot of single male migration looking for work, which led to other social issues, right? So tourism to me has been a real disruptor of community life here. And though it's brought some income, it didn't, the agriculture, the way it existed, especially bananas, brought a lot of money into the rural communities. And you can see that by the quality of the housing stock where bananas were popular. So tourism is our thing now. There's a lot of us that are arguing that we need to be more self-sufficient, that we need to ensure that we can feed ourselves, that we can water ourselves before we start catering to tourism again. Especially, we sell water to cruise ships, as an example, right? We have a cruise ship. We have a hotel economy, a hotel tourism economy, and we have a cruise ship economy.
We're almost out of time. We're down to 1 minute. But before we wrap up, tell me what you've learned about yourself from this COVID-19 experience.
That I am a very fortunate individual in terms of being in a position where I not only can protect myself, but I can actually project some help into the community. And I think that's what that a lot of things that I've done over the years seem to have been in preparation for this. And so, whereas I don't want to what they say, test fate, and knock on wood kind of thing. Thank God, my family and I have been in a position to help people rather than to have to be dependent on other people.
God bless you and your family. That warms my heart when I hear people saying, and that's the thing that they're proud of, is that they're making a difference in someone's life. I live for that purpose. So hats off to you.
Thank
I
you.
respect everyone who's doing for others because this journey is so short. We're not here to stay. Why not leave an indelible mark of change for the better in people's lives? And that's what I hear you saying.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we try.
Pardon?
That's what we try. That's what we're, you know.
And you were so perfect. We ended exactly when our time was up. Thank you so very much, Dr. Day. I am very grateful, and I hope I'll be staying in touch with you.
Yes, please.
I want to hear what's going on in St. Lucia. I'm very curious.
Well, I understand my daughter is going to talk to you tomorrow.
Oh, that's your daughter?
Yes, Evelyn.
Oh, I'm going to speak with her on Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah. So that'll be a good opportunity to hear what the other generation has to say.
Yes, I can't wait. I thank you so much. And
You're
thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, I hope Marcus has inspired you as much as he has me. And I will see you next time. Thank you.